Just to end with a couple of notes on the idea of community development banks and link that up to some of the current debate on financial regulation. Minsky's idea, which he developed at the end of his period at Levy, was sort of to develop this network of small community banks. The interesting point in this regard is that he looked upon these banks as universal banks. I mean, that would be banks that could engage both in small investment activities and in payment services, but they would definitely not be narrow bank in the terms that some have used in terms of getting banks away from everything else in the payment system. But then the question is, what do you do with the rest of the system? And then we get into this, very, topical debate about what banks should do, and whether we return to Glass-Steagall, which actually legislated a split between investment banks and commercial banks, whether that's possible and whether it's desirable. You all know about the views of Ron Paul and others, and where you have a critique of the notion of fractional reserve banking, which is the way the banking system is run today. And what I'm just saying here is that again, I've mentioned it before. The narrow banking proposal is not new. I mean, there were Henry Simons, Fisher, many of the well-known Chicago economists who developed this program in the 30s. In 1935, when they discussed the new Federal Reserve Act, and there were actually people who tried to get it into the law, but because of opposition in the Congress, that was not done at the time. But an important question that I think everybody then needs to remember or think about is, what about investment? Because Minsky writes quite a bit about this actually. If you think about a model where you would want a stable banking system that take care of payments and nothing else, then the question we have to address is what about investment? Who will finance investment and how? And I think there are two sort of basic point position in that. One is you would have mutual funds type institutions that would be privately owned, privately run, who would determine this. I think the last crisis showed us that that's not a complete solution, definitely. I think the other thing is government investment definitely needs to be a more bigger part of this. And this is consistent with Keynes' view, again, going back to the 30s, that you need more government finance to stabilize the private sector, really pro-cyclical behavior, as Pavlina ended up saying.